Hey, today we've got more news about the future update arriving on the 17th. The developers plan to include several fixes for the current bugs and have claimed it's a massive patch. The community manager has confirmed that the Warbond has not been delayed. We also have a new major order to discuss and so much more. If you can, support the channel by tapping the like button below, subscribing, and turning on notifications. What we have first is a discussion between a player and a community manager on the Helldivers 2 Discord. There has been a lot of questioning about whether or not the developers plan to address the bugs in the next update. This player right here wanted to know the same thing, to which Twinbeer responded, "Yes, there are fixes in it as well. I would say it's more focused on balances because it was imperative that we got back to what a lot of players said they wanted us to do. That being said, we've recently moved around, boosted, and given the bugs and known issue list a higher priority as well. It's being worked on parallel with other aspects of the game. The good news about this upcoming patch is that we're not only receiving buffs, but should also expect some bugs to be resolved. As mentioned earlier, the update is scheduled for release on the 17th of this month, and if you haven't already, check out my previous video where I discussed the Liberator Penetrator and the Thermite Grenade buffs. But make sure to finish this video first before watching that one. Now, aside from that, I'm excited to find out what bugs they have patched and whether they've improved the overall performance. Some biomes are quite taxing on FPS. For example, the forest biome has performance issues. Likely due to the extensive foliage, for instance. There's a lot of trees and other foliage. At least, that's what it seems to be the problem to me. Maybe they'll be able to reduce the textures a bit or remove some of the trees to make the game run better. If you're wondering, I'm currently on PlayStation and not on PC version, and I've noticed a lot of frames drop specifically in the forest biome. Also, a quick update on the Warbond status. The developers have provided some information to the community manager, who confirmed that the Warbond has not been delayed, and we can still expect it at any moment. This player asked if the Warbond had been postponed because of the 60-day plan, and Twinbeer responded by saying, "As far as I know, there has been no indication of it being delayed." Awesome, so there is still a chance we can expect a Warbond at some point. I have a good feeling that the next one might be based on a toxic gas theme. In the past, the developers have dropped hints about gas grenades during the Ministry of Truth news announcement. Here, Kelly mentions the production of gas grenades.
Meanwhile, those who are unable to fight are enthusiastically doing their part, making bullets, armor, toxic gas, and everything else needed for the arsenal of managed democracy.
Not only that, if you recall about 2 weeks ago or so when the hackers decided to automatically complete the sample major order, the briefing afterwards stated this right here. Those who submitted counterfeit samples in a recent major order have been reassigned to chemical weapon facilities, where they will be given the opportunity to repay their debt to freedom with strenuous labor. So it only makes sense that the next Warbond will be themed around gas grenades, chemical weapons, or maybe even a biofluid thrower, like a flamethrower but with biofluid instead. That sounds amazing to me. It would also be cool to see a new passive that gives us resistance against biofluid and gas, as well. Anyway, you can take this with a grain of salt, but with the proof provided, I wouldn't doubt it one bit if we see a Warbond based around toxic gas themed weapons and armor. If you feel differently, or if you agree with what I'm saying, then let me know by sharing your thoughts by posting a response below. With that said, there's another player who asked a great question, wanted Twinbeer to respond on whether there will be a way to team reload without needing a backpack. The community manager saw this and essentially said he hasn't heard anything about it, and that the patch already has a lot of content that won't allow for that feature. Here's the full post where he says, "I haven't heard anything on that yet. On the other hand, there's a lot of stuff coming that won't fit in the next patch, which is mostly good, of course. It appears this next patch is going to be quite substantial, considering they cannot fit any more features into this update. If that's true, the developers have really outdone themselves. It seems like it could be just as large as the Escalation of Freedom update, which at the time was said to be their largest patch yet. There's a good chance it could be somewhat as large as that one, which is awesome to hear. I think we're all a bit hesitant about this, thinking Arrowhead was going to release a small size patch, but it turns out that's not the case after all. And to give further proof that it's going to be a chunky patch is when Baskinator said this to a player on Reddit. "We share the detail stuff when the patch itself drops. That's always been our practice. The patch notes for this one are thick." Moving along, Twinbeer gave a statement and more context on what he meant yesterday about the elite players and how the team is catering to playstyle instead of the skill level. He wrote this on the Discord by saying, "A few of you seem to have taken my hardcore elite Milsimer post the wrong way yesterday. So I wanted to explain that I meant that in a good way, not as something derogatory. I wrote some messages after that offering more context, but the flow here is rapid and a lot of things drowned. To clarify, We want to make the game as good as it can be, both for those who want more straightforward experience and those who want to play the game in a more niche way, using stealth, completing challenges like missions with their own pre-made set of rules, or who simply laugh in the face of CR10. We want Helldivers 2 to be dynamic and flexible in how you approach it, thus we want to cater to various playstyles. To me, hardcore, elite, or milsim aren't worded with bad connotations, and if anyone took that the wrong way, I'm the first one to apologize. Well, as you know from this post, they're aiming to give both hardcore and casual players a chance to play the way they'd like to. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, I wouldn't like to see everything become too easy. I just want it to be at a sweet spot where it's both fun and challenging at the same time. If it's not, then it might become too easy, and that in itself could be a big problem. Now, I'm not the only one concerned about this. A member expressed worries that it might become too easy and wanted Twinbeard to provide some specifics on what he means. So he responded with, "That's a good and difficult question. I think ideally Pilistad should answer that, but I'll give it a try. I believe that if we make the game too easy, it should be relatively easy to scale things up, either by adding more difficulty levels, but I could also long-term see us doing challenges, using missions with a preset of winning conditions, or similar things. It's a long way from nothing to the most achievement, badges, and XP crammed online shooter, so there should be a big space there to experiment with in terms of variation without ruining the core experience. The most important aspect is to make sure players are having fun with Helldivers 2. If we have that nailed down, adding to the experience should be easier, given time and resources, etc. of course." I like this response a lot because I think he makes a good point. It's probably easier to scale up than to scale down on difficulty because you can slightly increase how hard the game is and see how things go from there. If needed, they can continue to adjust and improve based on the feedback we provide. He's also right about ensuring the game remains fun for the community, but of course, not everyone wants to play a game that's too easy, so I understand the perspective of those who expressed the same opinion in yesterday's video. Now, I will say it's too early to assume that they're heading in the right direction, but I'm sure Arrowhead will improve and adjust the difficulty as they go. Next up, a different community manager, Baskinator, informed another player that it's not possible for Arrowhead to change engines midway after the game was released. For those who don't know, during the Helldivers 2 8-year development, about 2 years in, the Stingray engine became outdated and was discontinued. That being said, Baskinator wrote back and said, "Upgrading as in changing the engine? I'm not technical either, but I've worked with many developers over the years, and I live with the developer, and I know swapping your game engine is a Herculean task, and you couldn't do it after release. We're going to keep making improvements to Stingray, though we've got a great tech team." She's not wrong, right? It would be like opening up a can of worms at this point. We would see some improvements, I'm sure, if they were to do that. However, there would also be delayed content, possibly even more bugs, and that's something they cannot risk, especially with all the backlash on nerfs, bugs, and so on. That would be detrimental for Arrowhead, and it wouldn't make sense to do so. I mean, it would in terms of improvements, but not business-wise. If they had a lot of time to spare, as well as a lot of developers, and were making good progress, I'm sure they could do it, but again, due to the current situation, it wouldn't make sense. With that aside, Twinbeard talked a bit about the beta testing program and how they're currently set with enough testers at the moment, so they do not need any more participants. However, they do plan to open up more spots soon. He replied to a player and wrote, "Hold on to your life, we only get one as far as I know. Right now I think we're set, but if there are applications for beta testing going out in the future, we'll make sure to holler here." Soon we should expect more news on the beta test program. I'm not entirely sure if I'll apply to be a tester, considering I won't be able to share any news on what they're doing because of the NDA, and of course, to avoid spoilers as well. Now, if they were to allow me to discuss a little bit about what's going on, then I wouldn't mind joining. Now, with that aside, we do have an update on the latest major order. We were successful, and right here it states, "The Terminid outbreak from the Gloom has been contained with property damage and loss of civilian life, both within acceptable parameters. The bugs wrought massive devastation across the Jingxi sector, forcing many families to flee from their homes, but the swift action of the Helldivers prevented significant loss of territory and protected the investments of the Ministry of Expansion. Rebuilding efforts are now underway, with evacuated families being moved back to their beloved colony homes they were forced to abandon. Parents and children are eager to resume cultivating the bounty of these worlds in pursuit of their dreams. The Terminids hide their undemocratic activity behind the shroud of the gloom. Efforts to peer within the cloud continues. So long as the Eye of Liberty remains obscured, tyranny will be allowed to ferment within." Now, what I thought was interesting is that the fact they mentioned property damage and loss of civilian life both within acceptable parameters. What the heck is going on here? Screw it, I'll be the first to say it. I think Super Earth is actually lying. Alright, sorry about that interception. I think I was actually saying that, you know, Super Earth is telling the truth about this, and they're doing everything that they truly can, and you know what? I love Super Earth. Alright, continuing along, since I was a little bit undemocratic, we do have a new major order and a briefing. Right here it says, the Automatons have launched another brazen expansion in an attempt to steal more territory from hard-working Super Earth citizens. Intercepted communications indicated the latest incursion is targeting a large repository of titanium on Ember, possibly for use in construction of some kind of enhanced strike force. The Automatons' recent expansionist efforts have been contained by the might of the Helldivers. Now they are clearly attempting to increase their warfare capabilities in an effort to capitalize on the threat posed by the Gloom. Our enemy's appetite for territory and resources is never ending. They're emboldened by recent failures to upcycle their war machines into tools of freedom, and now they seek to create yet more vicious means by which to steal our children's futures. The Helldivers must stop them. Now, as you can see here on the map, they have definitely tried to expand more on the right side, more so in the middle, and apparently it's all due to the Gloom. So they're really trying to take advantage of the situation, and I don't blame them. Now, as for the major order itself, we only have to defend against 6 attacks from the Automatons, and we have to hold Ember. So yeah, it's not too bad, but to be fair, I think we'll crush this one quite easily. The only thing that sucks about this major order is that we're not given the chance to pick up the Napalm Barrage, and that right there, I would have loved it, but it looks like that is pushed out for another date. So with everything being said, I do want to give you guys my overall thoughts about what's going on. So with that big patch coming up, it seems like it's going to include several fixes for several bugs, mainly those known issue lists that you commonly see at the end of the patch notes. They're also going to be adding a bunch of buffs. They're going to be taking a look at some things with difficulty and all that. And it seems like Helldivers 2 is actually heading in the right direction. Now, the proof is in the pudding, as Pillowstead has said in the past, and we'll find out if this next patch is actually as large and as good as it seems. Alright, with all that information being said, this is your Helldivers 2 news. We're now going to check out the top 3 comments from the previous video. If you guys would like to be featured in the next one, all you have to do is comment down below. The first comment is by Decoy2424, cautiously optimistic. And that right there is about the whole buffs from yesterday. The second comment is by PolarRisk2106. Let the 10th level be for hardcore players. Actually make a difference between 8, 9, and 10 difficulty. Have exclusive enemies and insane patrol rates on level 10. And last but not least, we have Kira Talks. So we finally getting actual realistic weapon damage. LOL. Yeah, I suppose, but we'll find out as soon as that update goes live, which is on the 17th. But anyways, thank you guys so much for checking out the videos and just commenting, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one.